Congressman Jim Banks. Congressman Banks, how is the weather out in the wilderness where you are right now?
It's great. We are up in northern Michigan. I'm on vacation with my wife and our three daughters, Kurt. So
that's gotta be fun.
Being a girl dad with 14, 12, and 10-year-old girls on vacation. When you asked me to come on the show, I was happy to do it.
Well, look, I'm sure it's sunny up there with, a 30% chance of rain because you guys have weather outside of California. What do you think the percentage chance of an impeachment is in the wake of all these revelations?
Well, it should be 100%. I've been calling for it the last few weeks. Enough is enough. I mean, the facts are there. The case is made. Every day we learn something new about the pattern of corruption by the Biden cartel, the Biden family, the stuff that they've gotten away with for many years. And the testimony in the hearing yesterday just further proves it. I mean, as you've already discussed, the number of times that Joe Biden and Hunter Biden worked together to sell access to some of our biggest enemies around the world, oligarchs and thugs, as you put it. This man deserves to be impeached. His family is the most corrupt family ever to reside in the White House. That's saying a lot after the Clintons lived there in the 90s. So I believe it's time for House Republicans to move forward. I know Speaker McCarthy is talking about an impeachment inquiry and moving that forward. I'm ready to go the full way, impeach him. He deserves it. And the reason why, Kurt, just to sum this up, the reason why I believe we have a moral duty to impeach Joe Biden is to forecast to any future president that you can't get away with what these guys have gotten away with. If we don't impeach him, it invites more types of activities like this from presidents in the future. We can't open the door for that.
Well, Congressman Jim Banks of the great state of Indiana, unfortunately, it looks like they are getting away with it at the moment. Do you know of a single Democrat who is standing up publicly and saying, wait a minute, taking millions of dollars from thugs, criminals, and oligarchs when you're the vice president is probably suboptimal?
Yeah, of course not. You haven't heard a single Democrat speak out against it, like ever. I mean, it's not like this just all came to light yesterday in this hearing. I mean, we've known about the big guy skimming 10% off the top now for years. We've known about the activities of the Biden family prostituting Joe's office in the Senate as vice president. We can speculate as well while he's been in the White House. We know this has been going on for years, and not a single Democrat has spoken out against it. And that just tells you how crazy the Democrat Party is today, how corrupt they've all become by accepting the corruption of their own president, of their own party. And that's the shame of it. I on this show this morning, I call on any Democrat, a single Democrat, with some common sense to speak out against it. I'm not going to hold my breath.
Well, if you did, you'd be holding it quite a long time. Let's move on to something else that's very close to both of our hearts, which is the woke military. We both served, you in Afghanistan, me, Desert Storm, in Kosovo, and I got to tell you, I'm very, very worried about what's going on in our military, particularly the recruiting crisis. And then I see, fat trans people being put forward on Army Twitter accounts. I see drag queen story hour guys being used by Navy recruiters. And I'm thinking, are they aiming at pumping up the recruiting in San Francisco? Because the kind of people, the vast majority of the people that I served with are not going to be responsive to this kind of transgressive, bizarre stuff. What are these people thinking?
Well, the bad news is that in the 50th anniversary of an all-volunteer force, we have the worst recruitment crisis that we've ever had in our nation's military's history. So that's where we are today. I'm chairing the Military Personnel Subcommittee on the House Armed Services Committee. Chairman Mike Rogers from Alabama asked me to lead it to focus on exactly these issues. Also, a poll, you probably saw it, came out yesterday, said public trust and confidence in our military is at a 20-year low. But the worst part of it is if you look at the plummeting trajectory of that public confidence, it hasn't hit rock bottom. It's going to keep declining, and the reason why is because when you insert politics and a political agenda, especially a left-wing woke political agenda in our military, the public is going to lose confidence in it, and that's what we're seeing happen. Here's the good news. A couple of weeks ago, the House passed our version of the National Defense Authorization Act, and for the first time since I've been in Congress and for decades before I got to Congress, this was nearly a party line NDAA. That doesn't usually happen. Usually both sides try to work together to make it very bipartisan, but Republicans bonded together, and we passed an NDAA with language that I inserted that allows service members who were separated because they didn't take the vaccine a pathway back into the service and not be punished for it. My colleague and friend Matt Gaetz from Florida got language into the NDAA to stop drag shows on military bases, something that I can't even believe that that's a thing. But we had to pass language to stop General Milley and this military from allowing that to happen. I got language into the bill that caps the pay of DEI bureaucrats. We found out that the Biden administration was paying DEI bureaucrats 5 times as much as privates on the front lines, over $140,000 a year that dozens of these bureaucrats were making. So we capped their pay at a very low amount. I got language inserted into the NDAA this year that says that no one can be promoted, assigned, selected, or accessions based on anything but merit. I mean, our military is built upon a meritocracy. You shouldn't be assigned to something because of the color of your skin or because of your sex or gender. It should be based on merit, and that's something that we have to preserve in our military. A lot more things that we did: stopped affirmative action at the military academies, stopped CRT from being taught at the academies as well. It's a really strong anti-woke NDAA that came out of the House. Now the hard part starts in trying to negotiate with the Democrat-led Senate to make sure that a lot of this language prevails. Our military and our nation is really counting on it.
Well, Congressman Jim Banks, speaking of the Senate, you are running for this the open Senate seat in the great state of Indiana. Do you have any primary opponents yet?
Well, we've got a couple of Democrats running, and we have a Democrat who's trying to run in the Republican primary. He filed the 1st of July. It appears that he's not eligible to get his name on the ballot because he's voted based on Indiana law. You got to vote in 2 consecutive Republican primaries to run as a Republican in the primary, and he didn't do that. So we're keeping an eye on that. I'm not taking anything for granted, Kurt. We're off to a great start. I kicked the campaign off in the middle of January, and here we are beginning the August time frame. I'm collecting signatures to get my name on the ballot, and anyone who's listening from Indiana, you can go to banksforsenate.com and get involved in our campaign. I need to gather signatures from every congressional district to get my name on the ballot. That's the process that we're in today. But I like you, I think the Senate needs a shake-up with conservatives who are there that understand what time it is, that our nation is we're at a point where we can't continue to negotiate with woke left-wing Democrats that negotiate the decline of our country. America is worth fighting for, and that's the type of attitude I've had in the House. We need more of that in the Senate, and that's why I'm running for the United States Senate.
Well, Congressman Jim Banks, they're going to throw everything they can at you. They think maybe obviously there are some tougher states than Indiana because Indiana is full of common sense patriots who will definitely hearken to someone like you. But they're still going to throw everything they have at you. What is your plan to win in Indiana? Because I know as a military guy, you're not going to take anything for granted.
Yeah, we've learned a lot of lessons in the Trump era, and Indiana has become more Republican because Donald Trump appealed to working class Republicans like my dad who didn't vote Republican before, but are Republicans now because for the first time in my dad's life, Republicans are talking about being tough on China, putting American workers first, and securing the border and immigration policies that put American workers first. And I just believe, Kurt, that the more we focus on that agenda, that America first, agenda that Donald Trump taught us appeals to a big sector of voters that weren't voting Republican before, the better we're going to do. And Indiana happens to be a very blue-collar state. A lot of voters like my dad that worked in steel mills and factories like my dad did. And when we go out and talk about those issues, we win those voters over. And that's why I have a good feeling that Indiana, even Hoosier voters that voted Democrat before recognize that this isn't their dad's Democrat Party. I mean, this is a radically socialist, left-wing Democrat Party that does not represent working-class families, doesn't represent Main Street. It represents something altogether very different. So that's what we're doing, is appealing to those voters on a platform and a record that I've had in the House for going on 8 years that I want to take to the United States Senate.
Well, Congressman Jim Banks, there seems to be two ways to go. One is focus on culture war. One is focus on bread and butter economics. We got about 30 seconds. Which one of those is going to be your primary focus in this Senate race?
Well, I don't think it's either or, but it's about preserving the great fabric of this country, the culture, the American way of life of this great country. That's been my focus in the House. And when we're talking about really radical ideas like allowing boys to compete against my daughters in sports, and when we're talking about opening the border wide open and letting fentanyl flood into this country and kill off millions.
Well, Congressman Jim Banks,
Americans, that's what I'm
thank you very much for joining us from vacation.